Okay, so everyone, let's gather around here in front. So let's discuss this A to Z claim. What is this A to Z claim all about? Okay. Okay, so just to give you an idea on how the A to Z claim works, it is that what will happen. As I mentioned yesterday, I gave you an overview of what is A to Z claim. If the seller don't want to refund the buyer if they receive a defective item, okay, so the buyer can file an A to Z claim. Okay, so that A to Z claim is the last resort of the buyer if they really cannot provide get any help from the seller. So the buyer will contact us. This seller don't want to help me, don't want to refund me, even though the item that I received is broken or not as described. I'm expecting this to be brand new, but it is used. So I'm now filing an A to Z claim. Okay. Now here, okay, my monitor was turned off. Okay, there we go. So let's say you purchase something in Lazada here, and you purchase a 1 terabyte hard drive disk or external hard drive, and you receive upon delivery is just 500 gig external hard drive, and you contact Lazada and they don't want to do anything. So it's like you can there is a particular seller. Let's say you purchase that external hard drive to a third party seller. Okay. Then the seller that you are contacting to don't want to help you. Okay. So I'm sorry, I send you the item that you want, but I don't know why you receive a different item. So if the seller don't want to cooperate, so you need to call Lazada just in case. But here it's Amazon. Okay. So what will happen here is the seller will receive an email saying that one of your buyer received file an A to Z claim. And of course, if there's an A to Z claim, what metrics will be affected? What metrics will be affected? ODR, correct. So that's why A to Z claim is, we can say that it is the worst thing that can happen to a seller. Because if the buyer win the A to Z claim, the seller will needs to, or Amazon will refund the buyer, okay, and it will be taken out of the seller's account to their bank account. Okay, and Amazon will not oblige the buyer to return the item. Okay, so the seller can lose their earnings and the item if the buyer wins an A to Z claim. That's why the seller needs to pay attention if they have A to Z claim. And based on our SOP, we advise the seller who read the SOP here, what is the time frame that the seller have for them to appeal for an A to Z claim? How many days? How many days does the seller have for them to appeal for an A to Z claim?
7 days.
Let's say they receive an A to Z claim. How many days do they have? So here it is. Remind the seller that there is a window of 7 days to submit the response. So let's say after 7 days, they failed to respond to an A to Z claim by the buyer. The A to Z claim will automatically be granted to the buyer. Okay? So let's say you're a seller, you're not checking your email for 7 days, and you don't know that there is already a buyer who filed an A to Z claim, and you just found out after 8 days. So you can't do any. So the buyer will be automatically be refunded since you did not do anything. You did not appeal. Now, first question: if you are a seller and you receive an A to Z claim, what is the first thing that you need to do? Okay, here. So I have here a sample case. This case has an A to Z claim. So let's speak in their account. Okay, so here, since you just need to walk them through in the performance tab and A to Z A to Z guarantee claim. Okay, so this is where you walk your seller. Let's say your seller asks you where can I check the A to Z claim? Where can I manage that? So just proceed to performance tab, then A to Z guarantee claim. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is where they will see it. So based on our SOP, they should be seeing this one. Okay, so if they receive an A to Z claim and they want to know where to go, so walk them through here, then they will be seeing this one. It is a refund, buyer, or represent to Amazon. This is for appeal. Okay, this more options is for if they want to contact the buyer. Okay, so if the buyer file an A to Z claim and the seller admit that yes, I think I did something wrong here, so I accidentally sent a different item, so I can refund the buyer. Okay, so you can refund the buyer. It is based on your communication with the buyer. Let's say, okay, I do apologize for that, I will refund you. And you can also negotiate to the buyer, okay, I already refunded you, would you mind to return the item to me? So I will pay for the return shipment fee. So just return the item to me. It depends on their conversation with the buyer. Okay, so the seller can negotiate with their buyer if they want to refund the buyer. But here, if the seller thinks that they did not do anything wrong with this order, so they can represent to Amazon. So here, they can write in the appeal box. So if they click here, they will be landed here. So this is the page that they will be working on. This one, okay, this. So if they click this one, represent to Amazon, this is the page that will show up. Okay, so they need to write here what they can say to the claim. So they can write everything here. So the seller can type here. We have an example here. So just for them to have an idea what to write into the appeal. Okay, so they can take this. They can just simply click this one to show example. So here is one example. So there's a time and the company received an email from stating that he was not satisfied with the order. So this is just an example, okay? An example of an appeal, just for the seller to have an idea what to write in this appeal. Then they can write everything here. They can attach all the evidence that they need, because an A to Z claim is an investigation process. Okay, and the team who investigate that is the seller guarantee team. Okay, so they are the department who investigate what went wrong to the order, why the buyer filed an A to Z claim, and what the seller did to rectify the problem. So it's an investigation process. That's why it may take up to 1 to 2 weeks for them to have a result for an A to Z claim. Okay, now this is where they type their appeal. Okay, so dear Amazon seller support or seller guarantee team, I'm sure that I send the correct item to this buyer, but I don't know why he is claiming that they did not receive the exact items or it was damaged. So I even have here the picture of the item before I send this, and I have here a tracking ID number, so everything went smoothly. But I wonder why this buyer is asking for an A to Z claim or file an A to Z claim, even though I did not do anything wrong in this order. So the buyer can put that in the appeal. So they just need to defend themselves. Why? So that they can, the seller guarantee team can say that, okay, this buyer did not do anything wrong, so I will not grant the buyer's A to Z claim. So if the buyer failed to win the A to Z claim, then the seller will have its earning. The earnings will remain to the seller. Okay. So what are the possible results for an A to Z claim? Because here, for you to check it, an A to Z claim always has an order ID number. Okay, so if there's no order ID number, there's no A to Z claim. So it is always have an an order ID number. Now, if you have an order ID number here, you need to pull up the tool which is spot orders. So just click orders, order, then it will show up the spot orders. Okay, so this is what you need to click. So let's copy the order ID number, click spot orders, then here it go. You need to paste it here, then click go, and you can easily see that this order has an A to Z claim because of this one, A to Z claim filed. So how do you know the status of an A to Z claim? Okay, so you need to go to the returns and refunds tab. This one, you need to click this. Then look for the status. Okay, so the status is, what's the status?
Seller funded buyer.
That's right. And we can see the explanation here. The status is SRFD. So here's the list of the status. So it's here. You need to click this one, this drop down, besides the status. Okay. So just hover your mouse in this drop down menu. Okay. Then you'll see the possible status of an A to Z claim. So let's read what is SRFD. So yes, seller refunded the customer. So if the claim was granted to the buyer, you will see here a granted, this one. So it means that the guarantee team granted the buyer's request for an A to Z claim. So the buyer was refunded and they are not obliged to return the item. Okay, so they can keep the item if they want, or they can throw it away. We don't care. Okay, we don't ask them to return that to the buyer unless the seller communicate to the buyer and convince them to return the item. So it's not it's not us who process it anymore. So they can negotiate outside Amazon. It depends on them. Okay, it depends on the seller if they can convince the buyer to return the item. But if the claim is granted, usually the buyer can keep the item, or they can do whatever they want to the item. Plus, they can have the refund also. So, another possible result is not granted. So, not granted, the claim was denied. So, the buyer was not refunded. So, it means that the seller is the one who won this claim because it was not granted. So, possible granted or not granted. Okay, so most of the time that's the result here. That's the status of the claim. And also possible DHLD. You will see here DHLD. So it means that the claim has been received and is being investigated. Remind the customer that the claim will take up to 1 to 2 weeks to be processed. Okay, so that is the waiting time. So if there's an A to Z claim, it may take up to 1 to 2 weeks for them to have a result. Okay, so what is the team who is handling the A to Z claim? Yes, it's the seller guarantee team. But for buyer, it's buyer guarantee team, but it's not us. It's not us who assisting the buyer. Okay, it's the customer service. So it is the seller guarantee team. Okay, it's the seller guarantee team. So that is the team who are handling the claim. So just like this one, this order ID number, the buyer was refunded because the seller refunded the buyer. Maybe somehow the seller think that, okay, I have to refund this buyer so that it will not hassle for the buyer.
So if the case was resolved and the seller refunded the buyer, it will still affect this metric.
Yes, very good question. So what if the seller refunded the seller? I mean the buyer. I'm sorry. Will it still hit their metrics? Yes or no?
They have to withdraw the claim.
Okay, here's the thing. It will still affect their metrics. But if they need the seller, if the seller wants to remove that into their metrics, what do they need to do? Okay, I refunded the buyer, so I should not be affected with the metrics. So what do I need to do if I'm the seller?
Contact the buyer.
You already refunded the buyer, so you did your best to assist the buyer. So what you should do for that case not to hit your metrics?
Email Amazon.
Yes, email Amazon. That's right. So what's the particular email? What is the email that I provided just yesterday for the metrics? It is, remember the email that I provided you yesterday? If they have any disputes about their metrics, what do they need? Whom do they need to contact?
Seller/performance.
That's correct. So let's say I'm a seller. I already refunded the buyer, so it should not hit my metrics, but it will. It will. But if they want to remove that in their metrics, they need to send an email to seller-performance and explain their side again. I already refunded the buyer. I should not be penalized with this one. I did my best to provide excellent customer service. So this was not intended. And need to explain yourself. Then send it to the seller-performance team. And it's up to them if they can remove it to their metrics. Okay, got it, guys? Okay, very good. Now, so the seller has 7 days for them to respond. Yes, to respond to an A to Z claim. If they don't respond within 7 days, what will happen?
The claim will be granted.
That's right, correct. The claim will be granted to the buyer. Okay. Now, after this, they create an appeal. What is the time frame for them to receive a response from the A to Z claim? I mean, from the seller-guarantee that we already received the response. What's the time frame? It is 24 to 48 hours. So if I'm the seller, okay, here's my appeal. I'll write it here, then send it. Continue, then send. So I may receive a confirmation email that from the seller dash guarantee team saying that we received your appeal and please provide us time for us to investigate. Okay, that's usually the response that they receive. So it's 24 to 48 hours to get a response that we received their email, but the investigation itself to have a result is 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, so it's quite a long process for an A to Z claim. Okay, so next, what if they don't, can they appeal for a claim without using this one, without going through this process? What have you read? So they don't want to go here on performance in A to Z claim. Then they don't want to click this one, represent to Amazon, this one. So let's just assume that this view here, you will see it here. Okay? So it should show up here, this view. Okay, got it, guys? Since this seller doesn't have A to Z claim, for them to take action, so there's none here. But if they do, this is what you will be seeing here. Okay, now, what if the seller don't want to go here to appeal for an A to Z claim? How they can appeal? Is there an alternative way for them to appeal? Okay, yes, there is. So how? Okay. So here is the important thing to remember for an A to Z claim. There is no phone support for an A to Z claim. There's no chat support. It is just purely email-based communication. Okay, so they need to send an email. They can use their personal email, their Gmail account, their Outlook, their Yahoo. They can use that and send an email to, okay, here's the email address. It is seller-guarantee@amazon.com. So you'll see it here in our SOP. Here, it's seller-guarantee@amazon.com.
Dash, boss.
Yes, it's a dash or a hyphen. So let's say your seller, okay, I don't want to go there. I cannot open my Seller Central right now. I don't want to open it right now. Is there any other way for me to appeal? Okay, yes, there is. You can use your personal email. You can use your Gmail. Send an email to seller-guarantee@amazon.com and send your appeal to their team. And it's up to them to investigate it. Okay, what if your seller is talking to you now saying that, okay, this A to Z claim is very annoying. It keeps on hitting my metrics. I don't want this to happen anymore. Transfer me to A to Z claim department. How would you answer that? Transfer me right away. I need to be transferred no matter what. Transfer me to A to Z claim team. How would you answer that?
Sorry, Mr. Seller,
Okay,
but we don't have a phone transfer for the team.
perfect. Yes, that's correct. So, I'm sorry, our A to Z claim, A to Z guarantee claim team only communicate through email. No, there's no phone support for them. So that's very good. That's what you need to say to your seller. Okay, any question, guys? Let's say the seller, the claim was already granted. Okay? Okay, here's just to give you an idea. What if the seller said that, okay, I'll write my appeal here because this is just your limitation in assisting the seller, how they can appeal for an A to Z claim. Let's say, okay, I send this. What do you think? Can you do an appeal for me? Can you do it for me? Okay, very good. Yes, we cannot do it for them. What if they ask you, okay, I said a very good appeal for them. What is my chances of winning this A to Z claim? Can you give me an idea? Can you give me figures around 50, 60, 40, 60? Can you give me an idea if I can win this A to Z claim? Can you give them figures? Yes, no, definitely no. So just inform them, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to comment on that. It is the seller dash guarantee team who will process that. Okay? So usually they ask that. They even ask us to create an A to Z to appeal for them. Okay, so any questions, guys?
Yes, boss.
Yes, what's up?
You mentioned that within 7 days, the seller has to respond to the email.
Yes.
What about if they miss that email and they can still appeal after the 7 days?
Okay, very good question. So, what if the seller missed the email? Okay, let's say they just carelessness. They don't know that there's an A to Z claim, and it's already 7 days. Do they still have a chance to appeal for it? What do you think? An idea? Do you think they still have
No, they don't have.
the chance to appeal if it's already if it's already been granted?
Because it's only 7 days.
Okay. So it is actually yes. They can still appeal for it. Even though the chances of winning that A to Z claim after the buyer was granted is very unlikely. So their chances of winning the A to Z claim if the buyer is already granted is very low. But they can still appeal. We can still advise them. Okay, you can still appeal for it. Okay, but it's not it's not our job anymore. It is between the seller guarantee team and the seller. So what we advise, of course, if we mention to them, if we advise them that you cannot appeal anymore, so they will be taking it against us. So our advice is yes, you can still appeal. They can still.
How long?
They can still.
For a year?
It's up to them. Yes, it's fine. If I think there's no limit for that. Yes, there's no limit.
Even they can appeal. There's no
That's just the limitation of our advice to our seller is yes, you can appeal. And it's up to you to inquire to the seller dash guarantee team. Because it's not our job to determine who will win the claim. It's the seller dash guarantee team. Okay? Now, is it possible that during the investigation, because the investigation may take up to 1 to 2 weeks, right? Now, is it possible for the for the buyer to receive the refund right away, even though it's still under investigation?
Yes,
Yes,
we have.
correct,
Because sometimes the seller is no longer appealing.
correct. So the buyer may receive the refund even though the investigation is not yet finished. So that's Amazon's policy. And it's also possible because, as I mentioned, Amazon's policy is to make the best customer buyer experience in buying in Amazon, even though the seller is being compromised with that policy. Okay, so the bottom line is they love buyer more than the seller. So that's Amazon's policy. That's why they are number one. If you are a buyer, you're confident to buy in Amazon because you know Amazon is on your side if something happens with an order. So that's really Amazon's policy. That's why they are number one. Yeah, especially the Ate Meg, you know that because you're from customer service. Yes, that's really true.
And sometimes there are also customers that
Abusing it. Yeah, that's just really true.
because of Amazon.
And is it also possible if let's say the claim was granted, you'll see it here on the returns and refunds that it was granted, but the seller was not debited. So it's like the buyer was refunded and the seller, it was not taken against the seller's account. So is that also possible? Do you think that's possible?
You mean, sir, Amazon will be the one to pay for that?
Correct. So yes, it's possible. That happens, but rarely. Because let's say the seller did everything to help the buyer, but the buyer was, for the inconvenience, they received a broken item. So to fix that, Amazon will just simply refund the buyer, and it will not take it against the seller. So make both buyer and seller happy. So that's possible. Because Amazon is rich anyway, so the seller dash guarantee team can have that kind of resolution. Okay, so if the seller has an A to Z claim, where do they need to walk them through? To the performance. Okay, A to Z claim. Then what do they need to click here? This one, they should see this one if they have an A to Z claim. This one. So if the seller think that they should not receive an A to Z claim, what should they click? What should they click? Yes, appeal. Now, if they just don't want to go to the hassle of investigation and they're so kind to refund the buyer, what do they need to click? Okay. So it will just show up here. So if they refund the buyer, the A to Z claim will be resolved right away. So no more investigation needed. And for you to be able to pull this up, you need to, what tool do you need to use? Okay. Then after clicking spot orders, usually it is automatic. The order ID number is automatically pasted here. But if not, you need to paste the order ID number here and click go. And you can easily see the A to Z claim. Then where would you need to go? What tab? Okay, returns and refunds. Then for you to know the status, where do you see it? Okay. So what's the reason why the seller refunded the buyer?
The
What's the reason?
is different.
Okay, so it's materially different. It's not what is described. So the seller made a mistake if by sending it the wrong item to the buyer. Okay? So any questions about E to Z claim?
None.
Okay, try pulling this up to your computer. This case ID number together with the order ID number and the case ID. So try pulling this out for you to practice your navigation skills. Okay, this one. So this is the case ID number and the order ID number.